what is a license and what is the difference between an edition and a license? Is there a difference between an edition and a license? Salesforce edition and Salesforce license, is there a difference?
A license is for somebody who's purchased a right to use that software.
All right, and what is an edition?
Edition would be an update or a newer version of that software.
No.
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 Edition would be something that features that has different features. And depends on the company size, how many users you want to the software to be used. Those kind of things will be there in different editions.
Okay. And
we
what
have
will
the
be the license
enterprise. License is giving, depending on the users, you give the access to how many users the platform can handle.
Okay. No. All right. What are the editions? No, that's not correct. What are the editions that we have? So can you name the editions that we commonly use? Editions I'm talking about.
We have the enterprise, the group, professional, unlimited, and developer.
Okay, so everyone is aware of the editions. Anyone who does not know what is an edition, and these editions: enterprise, unlimited, group edition, and professional edition, performance edition. Everyone has heard of that. We understand edition. We all know that. Do you know the pricing of the editions? How much does it cost for you to have an enterprise edition? Do you know that? Or do you know where to find that?
No.
Yeah, no, we know how to find it, but I don't remember. I think the unlimited is the most expensive, right? The enterprise is a commonly used one.
And do you know the pricings also?
No, I don't remember, but I know where to find it.
Where to find it?
On the Salesforce. Salesforce website, they have the pricing.
Products pricing, yes, right, yeah. Absolutely correct. So these are the editions. The performance edition is the most, the costliest one, $300 per user per month. All this pricing is per user per month.
Hi, Jeet.
Hi.
Hi, Jeet. I'm sorry I skipped the part. Can you just tell me like what edition and license is? I'm sorry.
I will tell you, just give me a minute. Yeah. All right. So this is where we have all these, editions listed, right? And performance edition is the costliest one, and then we have these starting from group edition. Not just group edition, we have one more called contact manager. That is just $5 per user per month, and then we have professional, enterprise, unlimited. Okay. So this is where you get the editions listed. Now this is a useful link, so just you should know where you find this thing. Why this is useful? Because you need to have some information. If you want to become a Formula 1 racer, then you should at least know which all cars are available in the market, something like that. So if you want to become an expert developer, you should know what all editions are available at least, right? Salesforce, what it is providing. So that way. Now talking on the editions and licenses. So editions we have seen, right? Now what is license? Is the license different from edition, or are they both the same thing? Edition is primarily for the company, okay, meant for the organization. Okay, so edition overall describes what is the scope of development, or what is the scope of customization, or what is the scope of functionalities that the organization is looking for. The company as a whole, what is their expectation? Do they want to develop application? Do they want to just manage contacts? Do they want to have opportunities? Do they want to create reports and dashboards? So this is the requirement of the organization that you will have to figure out, and based on that requirement you decide on the addition, right? As a company, what you need. Fine. As a company, let's say I am a very small company. I'm not even a company. I'm an individual, and I just need to manage my accounts and contacts. Then I don't need to go for enterprise edition or something, you know, as big as an unlimited edition. I can manage with a group edition or even with a contact manager edition, which comes to me for $5 per user per month. But that will allow me only certain things. Like a group edition allows you only these features. Okay. So the limitation for group edition will be this only. So this is the maximum limit of the group edition. Okay. Campaigns is a part of professional edition. So if you want campaigns, you have to take a minimum of professional edition, right? If you want customizable dashboards, you need minimum professional edition. You cannot do with a group edition if you need campaigns. If you want to design workflows and approvals, then you at least need an enterprise edition. Right? Now this makes sense. This is very clear, simple logic. So as an organization, what is their requirement? That is defined. So this edition basically defines the maximum limitation of your organization. Okay. Now the next question that I have is, you know, try and understand this question, think about it. Do you think that there will be a few people who would need kind of who will not need to work on all the features that are present in the enterprise edition or any edition? Let's say I am running a business and you all work in my team, in my company. Okay. In the company, we need an enterprise edition. Okay. And I have 10 people working, like you all 10 are the ones who are working in the company. Do you think all 10 of them will need to use all the functionalities? Everyone needs the entire capacity of the edition?
No.
No,
That is
definitely
where
no.
that is where the license comes in.
Exactly. That is where your license comes in. Because everyone does not need the full featured edition, you know, whatever features are there in the edition, everyone does not need it. Now you will mind this because can we have microphones on mute, please? Yeah, thank you. So that is where you will start mining, and you know, this payment will hurt you. I have 10 people. Out of 10, there are 7 people who just use simple things. They just work on simple application. And I am paying $125 for each of them. Fine. Then it would become a big drawback of Salesforce. That the person who uses all the functionalities, he also pays $125, and there are 7 people who just use Salesforce as end users who do not even need to have all the functionalities and everything. For them also we need to pay $125, right? So for that reason, the license concept is there. All right. So there are a few licenses.
So Jeet, the pricing for the licenses are separate, different licenses.
Definitely.
Okay.
So,
And that again is a monthly thing.
that's monthly thing, but the point is that this is the license fee. This $125, whatever you are seeing, this is the license fee. But this is for the license with all the features. But if you don't need all the features, then you will pay less. So let me tell you about this. Let's take enterprise edition. Now try to understand. This is very important for us to understand. Let's talk about enterprise edition. Enterprise edition has a few features. Let's say X number of features. X features. Okay. Overall, the boundary of X enterprise edition is it has got X features, X number of features. Okay. Now, this $125 that you see there is the pricing for one license, one user license who needs all the features. Okay, so this is the pricing set for someone who needs all the features. But if there are people who do not need all features, they need some X minus Y features, then they don't need to pay $125 for those users. Let's say you have 2 people who will work on all the functionalities, you will pay $125 for 2 people. If you have 8 people who just need some of the features, for them you might need to pay a lesser amount, right? So you, for those 10 people, let's say for another thing it will be $75. And for overall 10 people you will pay $250 here, and you would pay whatever 75 into 8, so $600 here. So overall you will pay $850. So you're not going to pay 125 into 10. So this is one common mistake that we make, right? So we feel that it is per user per month, means I will have to multiply 125 by the number of users. That's not the case. Okay. So there are a few licenses which are allowed by Salesforce. So these licenses are not customizable things. They have fixed licenses. So there is one license which is called Salesforce license. Have you ever created a new user on Salesforce?
Yes, we have.
Create a new user in Salesforce, it will ask you for license, right?
Yes, yeah.
So there is a license called Salesforce license. Okay, the Salesforce license has all the features of the edition. Whatever is permitted by that edition, Salesforce license has all those features. Okay, then there is, I'll just give you a few examples. I do not remember all the licenses. I can share some chart with you which has all the licenses and the descriptions, but few examples like Salesforce license has all features of the edition, whichever edition it is. Okay, so like if it is enterprise edition, your Salesforce license will have all the features of enterprise edition. So someone who has a Salesforce license can work on anything, can do whatever he wants. Definitely, after that it is a matter of profile also, but profile is your internal affair. This is Salesforce controlled by Salesforce.com. There is one thing called Force.com license. Force.com one app, or it's called platform license.
This is more for developers?
This is not for developers. This license allows you to use only the custom apps. Alright, this is meant only for custom app. You cannot, anyone who has this license cannot use any of the standard apps. The standard sales app, marketing app, those cannot be used. Okay, and this one comes for $25. Alright, so let's say you have purchased enterprise edition, and using enterprise edition you have developed an HR app, and you know that there are 4 people who will just use the HR app, which is a custom app, which has been designed by your company. Then for those 4 users you don't need to pay $125 because it's your own app. You can just buy Force.com one app license for $25. Then
but then they cannot use any of the other features that the regular Salesforce license will give, right?
features will be there. App they cannot use. They cannot use the sales and marketing and whatever standard apps have been provided. Features are
only the apps. Okay.
Yeah, features they will have. Then you have one more for Force.com, multiple apps. I do not remember the name for that. So you have one more, Force.com all app. I think for that they charge you something like $80 or something, and you will be able to use all the Force.com apps, maximum 10. Force.com apps means your custom apps. Then you must have seen a chatter free license. Okay, this chatter free is free of cost. It comes to you free of cost. Okay, but these licenses can be used only by the users who need to use chatter. So if you are using a chatter free license, you cannot use any other app, any of the apps. You can only use chatter. Chatter we have seen, right? So that ways there are so many different licenses. Got it? So most important ones that we need to understand is the Salesforce and the Force.com. Chatter free, anyhow, they provide you. If you look into your developer edition, you will see that there are 500 chatter free licenses. All right. So chatter free they keep on giving anyhow for free. So you can create 500 users with your developer edition, and you can stay connected with them through chatter. Right. But the most important ones are the Force.com and the Salesforce. Salesforce one will have all the features, and Force.com will have only the custom apps. Okay, feature wise there is not too much of difference. The apps which can be used, okay, for Force.com and Salesforce. Then you have the partner portal licenses, customer portal licenses. Okay, the customer portal users that you create, for them you need to purchase customer portal licenses. Fine. The license fee will be definitely different for customer portal license. It is something like, you know, $5, $6 thing. Then there is partner portal license. So I don't need to pay $125 for everyone, for my customers, because they will not need anything. They just have some fixed profiles, and they can just, you know, view their cases and all those things. So why would I pay $125 for my customer? Is he gonna do customizations and all? No. Partner portal license, it is you know, so close to $20. So you don't need to pay full amount for your partners also, right? So that this is how you need to decide what kind of licenses you need. Your enterprise edition is gonna be the outline, the, you know, the outermost boundary, and at least you will have to have one license of Salesforce, and remaining you can have lesser things. But Salesforce will make sure that if you are purchasing licenses with like Chatterfree and all, you are not able to use the Salesforce standard apps, right? So you'll not be able to use the sales app, you'll not be able to use the accounts, leads, automatically lead being converted, opportunity cases, those things you will not be able to use. You can definitely go ahead and design your own objects, call them accounts, leads and all those stuff, build a custom app and then start using it. And if you are really tight on budget and you want to save money. Got that thing? So this standard Salesforce app comes up, when I'm talking about the app comes up with a lot of predefined functionalities. We understand that, right? Like converting a lead, assignment rules, escalation rules. There are a lot of, you know, other features which are already there, you know, inbuilt in that standard app, right? Web to lead functionality, web to case functionality. So those things are already there. So if you are not using this one, you're not able to use those functionalities also. I mean, the user who is not having this Salesforce license, he'll not be able to use those functionalities. So that is the thing. Okay, so it's not just about that tab list of tabs in the app. It is also about the functionalities. So the predefined functionalities which by default come up with the standard app, those will also not be available to this guy. But your custom app, you put whatever functionalities you want to, you can use them. Triggers you put workflow rules, whatever you have developed, you can use that. Correct? So now are we all clear on the edition and licenses? This is one important thing that I actually, you know, wanted you all to know.
Yeah, I got it now.
Now what happens is, most of the times, why I'm talking about this part, because you need to understand the editions and licenses. One, when you go to you know, an organization and you get into an environment where you're working on Salesforce, you need to understand, you know, how these things are. So far you have just dealt with developer edition. You do not know even how to create a user. You must have created a user, but you don't get into the complexity of what license, what profile and all those things. You just go ahead and create some dummy record, right? So you need to know this part. That is one, for your understanding. Secondly, sometimes the interviewer tries to get a little tricky on you know, these questions. That okay, what license did you have? Now you say that enterprise edition. Oh, you would definitely say enterprise edition. This guy starts asking what license do you have. So that shows, if you say that I have 3 years experience and you do not know what is the difference between an edition and license, that is like a, you know, big mess, right? If you are not able to answer a complex question, that is okay, but a 3-year, 4-year experienced person not able to answer this thing, that you know, clearly proves that you do not have that work experience. So you just have to be a little more you know, confident, or you just have to be a little more clear on the basic concepts, because that is where the chances are there that you get caught. Okay, so editions and licenses we have understood. Now the second thing,
Jeet, excuse me, could you please tell me what the Force.com that you have written? I missed that one.
Force.com is only, you know, licensed to use only custom apps.
No, the other one, all app that you have written.
So force.com all apps, this is another license. So this is, I think, $25. You see it here, no?
Yeah.
On this pricing
Yeah,
thing, you will find it. Platform
Yeah.
licenses. Click on
The
this.
other one?
I'll show you. Just you see this link?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So platform licenses are here. Force.com enterprise app, one app, $25. Okay. Force.com app bundle, $80. Here you can, this is for one app, maximum with 10 custom objects. This is for 10 apps, maximum 200 objects. So this is $80. Force.com unlimited app, this is $150. Got that thing?
Yeah. So with just the Salesforce license, I can use the App Exchange and all, right?
Yes, you can. You can use App Exchange, but every app on App Exchange is priced.
That's right. Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
Salesforce.com Enterprise Edition, you just get $125 sales application. Now, if you try to buy another application on the App Exchange, which is priced at $60 per user per month, then you'll have to pay additional to them for the number of licenses you need. You got it?
Okay. Okay.
So this $125 will give you the normal regular sales and marketing app. But now you say that I need a project management app from the App Exchange, and you will need to pay additional for that. Got that part?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Until and unless that app is free on App Exchange. If it is free on App Exchange, then you can just take and start using it. If it is paid, they usually have two types of payment. One is per user, one is per organization. Okay, so if it's per user, then the number of users you have, you will have to pay according to them. If it's per organization, you just need to install it and then you can start using it. Everyone in your company can use it.
So Salesforce talks about sales and service, right?
Right.
So, and when you're talking about the app, you're talking about sales only, right?
Because you are on Sales Cloud now.
Yeah, that's right. So how about the Service Cloud? That's a completely different.
So for Service Cloud, the pricing is different.
Oh, it's different completely. Okay.
Right. So Service Cloud, the pricing is different.
Okay, so
It's a different. Tell me.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I can see that they have separated it out based on what features we need, the service, the community.
You're right. So this is more to do with the case management and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll go through that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Navjot, that's fine. I think Navjot is gonna drop out. He got some work. Navjot, that's fine. Let's see you next session. Thanks, man.
Okay, thanks, Jeet. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. So that's about additions and licenses. We understand this part. Now the next thing that I just wanted to ask you, how do you work on the data imports and all? So what is the preferred methodology for you? Do you use data loader or the data management option in the app? What do we use? Do we use data loader or we use that data import wizard?
I think it depends, right?
If you have a lesser than 50,000 records, you use the import wizard. And if you have more than 50,000, you use the data loader.
That's correct. And we are aware of how to use data loader.
We did go through the steps on how to use it.
Okay, so what is a security token?
The security token is something that gets it gets generated by the system, the Salesforce. When you want to access through API.
Yeah, so why do we need security token?
When we try to access from a third-party source,
What is the third party source?
An external source when you're trying to import.
But what is that external source? I mean, how would I know which is internal source, which is external source? What is the definition of external source?
Could it be from another CRM software that they're changing
No.
from one to the other?
No. Outside your trusted network. What is my trusted network? Trusted IP range.
What you define in your company.
Trusted IP range.
Yeah, those are the trusted IP ranges. Whatever IP range you define
For your
when you
company.
set up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So you need security token if you are trying to log in outside the trusted IP range, that is one thing. Or you are trying to log in into a desktop application, the installed application. Data loader is a desktop application, right? It's not a web application. So anytime you are using any such application which is installed on your system, like data loader, like Salesforce Offline, like Salesforce for Outlook, then you need to use security token. So these are the two reasons. Yes?
Okay.
All right. So clear with everyone? Security token is to be used. So data loader is one of those applications, right? Desktop application. So we need to use security token while logging into the data loader. All right. So that is it. Is there a limit for data loader? How many records can I import into data loader?
Yeah.
Is there a maximum
there is
limit? What is that
Yeah,
limit?
there is. Is it 5 million? I'm
Says
just
5,000,
throwing it.
50,000? No, 5 million.
No, 5 million
5
is
million.
what comes. Yeah, 50,000 to 5 million.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what is an upsert operation?
When you load the when you are importing the data, you update as well as while the data is getting inserted into the record.
Update and insert. That is what Jackson says, and that's correct. Update and insert. So combination of an update and insert, right? When you are not sure whether the data you are trying to put into the system that already exists in the database or not, when you use an upsert operation. So wherever there is a scope of updating, it will update if the record already exists. If it does not exist, then it will go and create one record, right? So in case you're not sure whether this data that I'm going to put into the CRM is already there or not, then you will use an upsert operation. Let's say, I'll give you an example. You guys have heard of Hoovers, Hoovers.com?
Yeah.
Anyone who knows? So Hoovers is basically a data vendor. They sell data. So I'm just giving you an example you can use somewhere in the interview. And this is a very common practice a lot of people do. So let's say if I'm running a business, I have a CRM. From where do I get the data into my CRM? I buy it, most of the people buy the data from some company, some other company, and then they try to market their products to those companies, right? So I have a client, they buy data from Hoovers. Not just one of my clients, but I'm just giving you an example. So my client buys data from Hoovers, okay? Every 10 days, 20 days, they buy a new file from Hoovers. Okay? So Hoovers sells them the data. Now Hoovers has a contract with them that in case they get any records which are already existing in the system or which they have already purchased from Hoovers, Hoovers will not charge them for those records. That's the agreement, right? Now, which means that there is a possibility of duplicate records coming in. I purchase a list on 1st of December and I purchase a list on 11th of December. There is a possibility of these duplicate records coming into it, right? Into their file. So one is the aspect that I would not pay to Hoovers, that is a separate thing. But second thing is I do not want to put in duplicate records in my file in my CRM also, right? Do you want to have 3 entries for the same company? Because that will completely have a very bad effect on your database, and that will completely ruin your process. If you have three, let's say, accounts with the same name, IBM, and there are three contacts, one, mentioned under each of the account, then you will never be able to find the right point of contact. You will always think that you use, if let's say Cecily is contacting IBM, she might open one of the IBM records. I am opening, I might open the other one, and we might not be able to get the deal, anyhow. So it's something which should not be done, right? So for that reason, you use an upsert operation. So upsert operation helps you avoid some of the duplicates. If you do insert would simply go ahead and create new records. It will not even check whether that record is there or not, right? So that is something which we do not want to do. So upsert is the statement that we need to use. All right. Okay. I think someone was asking on these lines also that deduplication thing. Yeah, Shayaxian. So does that make sense, Shayaxian? The deduplication concept that you were trying to ask? Yeah. Okay. So upsert is a good thing. Practically, you will use upsert more than an insert and update. But interestingly, I see a lot of people are not aware of upsert. They know what is update, they know what is insert, but they do not know what is upsert. But upsert is practically more used than an insert and update. The next thing that I want to ask here is, what is a hard delete? On data loader, there is an option called hard delete. What is that hard delete?
Guessing the data that cannot be recovered.
There's a delete option, right? So delete will delete the records. What will this hard delete do? What is the difference between normal delete and hard delete?
The data will be deleted from the recycle bin too. I mean,
Yes.
you're not able to recover it.
Absolutely correct. Now there's another option called export, which we all understand what an export is, and export all. What is this export all? What does that export all mean? Export all simply means, no, it's not exporting data from all objects. Export all means exporting the data from the object as well as from the recycle bin. So if there are any soft delete records also, those will also be exported. Got it? So the difference between export and export all is export will only export the data from the actual table, whereas export all will export the data from the recycle bin as well. Any record which is there in the recycle bin. Yeah.
But why would you want to do that? I mean, you can recover it from the recycle bin and then go ahead with the export, right?
But I don't want to recover it.
So then export all will be.
Okay, I'll give you a scenario. I told you are working as an administrator. I told you that okay, we are running out of storage space. You go ahead and delete all the opportunities of last year. You went ahead and you deleted them. Then I told you that, hey, you know what? I want you to actually take a backup of those opportunities. Right? Now you have already deleted those, right? That data is already in the recycle bin. I just say that take a backup in an Excel spreadsheet or just archive the data in a CSV file or somewhere. Now would you restore all those opportunities? Let's say you have deleted 1000 opportunities, again restore, then export and then delete it back. You can simply do an export all and take the data out from there. Got that thing?
Okay.
So that is an option which is available. In case we have done it before putting it in recycle bin, well and good, then we will use export. However, if you have already moved the data into the recycle bin, and it happens a lot of times that you have moved the data into recycle bin and you just want to take an export to archive that whatever has been deleted.
Okay.
Okay. And it is not going to be that one user will always do the delete. You might not have deleted all the 1000 accounts. People, different people, all the sales people might be deleting, removing the duplicates. So once everything is stored in the recycle bin, then at once you just want to take an archive of that. So that sort of thing. Correct? So we have that option. Okay, anyone else? Any other questions on this? Now, can you just give me 3 advantages of using data loader over the import wizard? So I'm talking about import now. So if I do an import through a data loader and if I do an import through data loader, import wizard, what are the 3 advantages of using data loader? Any 3?
Yeah, first is the size of the records that you want to
I
import.
just have 10,000 records. I don't have more. So I
then you
have a
can
file
use-
of 10,000 records. I need to import them either through import wizard or through data loader. Now you have to convince me that use data loader, and you have to give me 3 good reasons why should I use data loader.
I cannot convince you.
No, try and convince me and think of reasons.
No, that's what I'm not able to recall any
Anyone?
other reason other than the size.
Anyone? I have a file of 10,000 records. I want to import those into Salesforce, and I want to do it through import wizard. You are saying, because you are experienced, you are saying that go ahead and do it with data loader. I say no, import wizard is good. You have to convince me that why data loader is good. Give me 3 good reasons for that. Anyone?
One could be like you could schedule your loadings like through data loader compared to like the import wizard is more like manually. You have to do it. This could be one of the reasons, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, but if I told you I'm just going to do it now. I'm not even going to schedule it. So I mean that is good. I mean whatever you people are saying, those are also fine. I mean what Cecily said and what you said, both of you are correct. But I still need more reasons.
You have to give us some hint if we have to
Okay.
keep guessing.
Yeah. No. So I mean when you use data loader, start thinking what is different.
Like maybe there's a file that is maybe like this also in terms of supporting the files as well. I mean, is that another?
No, so both of them support only CSV. So CSV is common.
Okay.
Okay. So one can be the data loader is faster. Apart from the reasons that you already told me, data loader is faster. So doing any upload through data loader will be a lot more faster than as compared to an import wizard. Okay.
Then why have an import wizard if you can just use data loader?
No, sorry, what is that?
Why do you, if it's faster and if it does if I think it has better features as compared to import wizard, right?
You're right.
Then why not just use the data loader all the time? Why go to import wizard at all?
Yeah, import wizard is there as a temporary solution, right? So it's like if you want to just quickly import some data, or there are certain users who want to import their data, you want to allow them to do those small imports, that's absolutely fine. Data loader is meant for a professional developer or administrator, someone who knows Salesforce properly. Import wizard can be used by anyone. I mean, like let's say you are a sales rep and you've got 10 records. So for a quick thing you can put it. Though the limit is 50,000, but for 10,000, 20,000 records also you will use data loader. Right.
Okay.
So import wizard is for quick use, because for every user you are not going to train them on data loader. Secondly, you are not going to install data loader on everyone's system. So that is the reason why we have an import wizard.
Okay. So so what were the 3 things? Sorry, I interrupted in between.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So one, it is faster. Second, you get the error logs. Okay, the success logs and the error logs. Okay, have you seen that?
Yeah, now I
After
remember.
there's an import done, there's a success and error. Now the reason is that if you, in case, if you have, we were trying to import 10,000 records. Out of those 10,000 records, 50 had errors. Okay. Now import wizard will just tell you that okay fine, out of 10,000 your 9,900 whatever 9,950 got imported and 50 records had error. Now how will you try figure out which 50 had errors and which 50 were not imported? Import wizard will never tell you that. Now you keep on thinking, okay, you do a report and all that stuff, and that becomes a very complex job. Think about it. I was trying to upload 10,000 records. It simply told me that 50 had errors and we could not import that, and it does not give you any clue on which 50 records it's talking about, right? However, your data loader will give you error logs which will have all those 50 records which were not imported along with the error. What is the error? So your life becomes a lot more easier, right? Then it also gives you success logs. What is the success log helping? Success log has the IDs of the record. Okay, it provides you the record IDs of the records which were inserted. Whenever you enter a record into Salesforce, there's an ID, unique ID generated by Salesforce for that record. We know that, right? So this ID is provided in the success log. So this will help you in case you want to do further imports. Let's say after inserting this, these are 10,000 accounts. Think of it. These are 10,000 accounts which you are inserting. After inserting 10,000 accounts, you will need to enter 30,000 contacts under these accounts, right? So when you are trying to insert contacts, you will have to relate every contact to some account, right? That relation thing you cannot do with the name of the account record. So you'll have to use the record account IDs. So if you have to go further, importing some other object or the child object, then you need those IDs. Those IDs are provided in the success logs. So instead of, otherwise, through import wizard also you could have got it, but that would again take you some time to generate a report or do an export and then take it out and all that stuff. But here you will have those things ready-made. So within next 5 minutes you can import the contacts also, right? And there is one more reason for this. Do you see that import wizard is, do you see import wizard having all the options of importing any data? Let's say opportunities. Can you import opportunities using import wizard? No. Can you import cases using import wizards? No. So import wizard is restricted to a few objects like accounts, contacts, leads. Campaigns is not there. So, but your data loader allows you to import whatever you want, whichever object. Fine. All the objects are allowed in the data loader, even the system objects. Got it? So that is the thing. So apart from the reasons that you are thinking of, these are a few more reasons, right? Why we should use a data loader. Alright. So I think for data management thing, it's fine. I see one question here. Shakshan says, if I already have data duplicated in the object, what's the process to clean them? Okay, now this is kind of a slightly tricky question. So you do not have a very clear answer because Salesforce does not allow us to have, they do not have a button where we click and it automatically deletes all the duplicate records. See, duplicacy is one of the biggest challenges that any company which has data, they face this challenge. Any company. And I'm not talking about CRM, I'm talking about everything else. So duplicate record is a big challenge. Now, how do you deal with the duplicate records? How do you remove the duplicates? That is again, that has to be a process which the company has to define. Okay. First thing can be, I'm just giving a little brief on this, and you guys just need to understand that small thing and then build a little more on that. First is, do I have that scope of removing the duplicates right at the time of entry? So is there a mechanism which I can put in place to avoid the duplicates so that the duplicates anyhow do not get into the database? So is there a possibility of that? That is something that you have to consider and look into. That is difficult. Okay, doing that is difficult. It seems very easy. When I talk to someone and who is managing data, I would say don't allow the duplicate records. put validation rules, put this, that, all that stuff. Okay, fine. Make the fields unique. But that is not, it's not that simple that you simply avoid the duplicate entries, because if you put too many validations, too many rules, too many unique fields and all that stuff, then what will happen? End of the day, the end users will start avoiding entering data into the system itself. And this is a fact. If you put too many restrictions, then what will happen? People will avoid entering data. Your data comes from various sources. It comes from vendors, right? Sometimes it happens that you have got the same record twice, but still you do not want to miss on that. I'll give you an example. I've seen clients, they get their data from, let's say, some source. For an example, think of a website. They get the data from website. They see that Sicily, they have received a record with this number, okay, and then they have received another record for the same lady Sicily, but still you might not want to remove any one of these. You might want to see that, okay, is the phone number different or is the email ID different? You are 100% sure it's the same person, but you might want to keep the record, both the records, or quickly not delete those. That it's possible that she might have given one number here and one number here. In 2 attempts that she has made, she might have entered 2 different numbers, and I might not be able to contact her on the first number. So let me allow the data at least into the system. After that, my sales guy will call her, and whichever is the correct number, after that it can be deleted. You getting my point? So if I restrict it at the entry point, it may happen that I miss on the correct number.
So how about the merge option then?
Merge is after the data gets entered into the system, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm currently we're talking about restricting the data right at the time of entry, right? So we cannot be very strict. So the moral of the story is that we cannot be, though we feel that Salesforce is such a powerful tool, but companies functionally, if you think from that business point of view, you will understand that it's not very easy to be too strict on the data entry level. So you cannot have too many rules working at the data entry point. Okay. Now somehow duplicate data gets into the system. Now how do you clean the data, duplicate data? That depends on you. So is it something which can be easily figured out? Okay, you can write triggers for that, or you can just write some Apex code for that and run a method that can find and automatically delete the records. But for that you need to have a very clear logic. Most of the times you do not have a very clear logic to delete those data. If there are 2 phone numbers and if there are 2 different email IDs for 2 contacts, for the same contact, let's say one is my official email ID, one is my Gmail ID, then you again start thinking that which one should I delete or which one should I keep and all. So, and finding duplicate record is again a big challenge, because for let's say for Jeet Singh, what would be the criteria for you to find out the duplicate record? If you just check on the first name and the last name, there can be 2 people with the same name, right? If you look first name, last name in the company, still there is a possibility that there are 2 people in the same company with the same name. But however, that can be a process of for you to figure out which is duplicate and all, right? So maybe IBM. So you just need to figure out what is your process of figuring out duplicates. How do you want to identify duplicates? Then there are manual ways of doing that, merging record one by one, or you can just have a clear defined logic, write a code and do that, or you export the data. If you're not very good with Salesforce, export the data, take it in say Excel spreadsheet. You will have the entire Excel spreadsheet, keep on updating the spreadsheet, and then go back and put it back in the ones that you feel are correct, put them back into the Salesforce. Delete the data which was already there. So this is not just a technical process. It takes a lot of brainstorming to be done before you decide how will you consider the duplicate records. Which one would you consider? Which one would you keep? Which one would you delete? That sort of things. Clear? Okay. So that's about the data thing. Now who will tell me the difference between a profile and a permission set? Is there a difference between a profile and permission set, or are both of them same? Are these both the same thing, or is there a difference between them?
They are different.
Okay, so what is the difference between them?
Profile is basically what gives you access to for each user needs to have a profile, and it defines what kind of access to which fields the user can have access to. And permission set is something that is related to the security and access. So basically, if the company has got the organization-wide default, whatever the sharing sharing is defined, and
No.
you want to no, that's not
Sharing
okay.
sharing is different from this.
No, I know sharing is different, but if you have given access to all in the company, but if you want to give
No.
but no, okay.
But-
Oh wait. Permission set, I think it's something to do with the ability to create delete records.
No.
No, I think that permission set is something like you given user more access on the offset.
Right. So profile basically is collection of permissions, set of permissions that you receive. But in case there is a requirement that there are a few permissions that one user needs, but others in that profile do not need those permissions. Okay. So in that case, there will be a permission set which will be created and it will be given to that user. Got it? So it's like a top-up plan. So there is a base plan that you have, and then there is a top-up plan. Now, base plan allows you to make unlimited free calls. Now you want to send unlimited free SMSs also, text messages. Then you can take a permission set. So which is a top-up, which does not come up with your plan there, but that is an exception and that you can get on top of the base plan. Same way, profile is primary. It is required for every user. The permissions that a user has, that depends on the profile. But in case there is a situation where one or two users need some permissions, and they need the permissions which are not required by other people in that profile. Okay. So let's say my profile gives me 10 permissions, but I am working on a special project and I need 2 more permissions which are not on my profile. The system administrator cannot put those 2 permissions in the profile, because if he puts those 2 permissions in the same profile, then everyone using the profile will have those 2 permissions, which is not our requirement. Then this guy administrator will create a permission set, will put those 2 permissions in the permission set, and he will give that permission set to me. Is that clear? Simple enough to understand profile permission set.
So that is what I was thinking about, but I could not say it properly.
Very good.
So permission.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So you're saying you need to give the extra the permissions that you create to give over and above the access that the profile has, right?
Right, absolutely correct.
So why does that scenario happen? Because of the organization default, by default is set to some particular level, and this profile is not able to access that, so you're giving the extra permission set, creating the extra permission set for that profile, right?
No, it has got nothing to do with organization wide.
No?
No. That is sharing settings. That is how you are sharing your data. This is about the permissions. Let's say my profile does not allow me to see accounts. It does not allow me to, I'm not allowed to view accounts.
No, Jeet, my question is, when does this scenario happen? When do I feel the need that I have to give the extra permission set? create the permission.
Yeah, that is what we are talking about. My profile does not allow me to view accounts, but I need to view accounts because the CEO of the company wants me to create a report on the accounts. Now the CEO does not want other people in that profile to see accounts, but he does only want me to see accounts. Got that thing? Like profile does not have that thing, but that is an exception that I need. So put it in a permission set.
Okay.
Clear on that? We all are working, let's say we all are working in the same company, we all have same profile, right? And let's use someone's name. Let's say we have this guy Mohit. Mohit is one of the favorites of the manager, and the manager wants Mohit to design a report. For designing that report, he needs permission to 2 extra objects which we do not see. Let's say there is one object called opportunity, one object is account, right? We all don't get to see it because it's not in our profile. Now the manager calls Mohit, he says, you know, you are my favorite, I want you to create a report. Now Mohit says, sir, but I do not have access to these 2 reports through my profile. Now if the manager or if the administrator puts those 2 permissions in the profile, then we all will also get to see the promotion which Mohit is going to get, he will not get. So that is just a part of the story, but this can be a requirement, right? You don't want to give those permissions to everyone in the profile, just 1 or 2 people in the profile. So you just create a permission set, right? So it's a top up.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Got it.
So it's more like a common common set of requirements that everyone has that should be put in the profile. Any special requirements should be dealt with permission sets. It's like, you know, adding some extra sugar to your soup or that sort of thing. All right.
Okay.
So we are clear on the profile and the permission set concept. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Now, who will tell me what is organization by default?
So this is the access level that we
Yes,
set for
it is.
Go ahead.
Yes, it is a common sharing rules for all the organization.
Yeah. So what is that? What does it define?
So we have it. If we keep so it's defined as to be as private, or it can be public, read only. So it's the access level that is defined at the it's access defined at the company level.
That's true.
So we have public, we have read only. So that means the users can look at all the records, but they cannot edit or delete.
Yes. So it's basically the mechanism of making data within an object either public or private.
Yeah.
Public means everyone can see the data. Private means only the record owner will get to see the data. Right? So that is the organization by default. Now what is the sharing rule then?
Sharing rule is where we create a group, or you want to particular give access to a particular group.
Is that so? What is the sharing rule?
No?
Okay. I mean, not fully incorrect, not fully correct. Anyone who wants to answer, who feels can explain a little better? Okay, Mohit says who sees what? Who sees what is what, for OWD or for sharing rule?
For OWD.
For OWD, okay. Yeah, public or private. Fine. How about sharing rules? The sharing rule? Parthish?
Sharing the access, basically, like, to the groups, different groups. Sharing access to different groups.
Yes. Again, you know, to some extent correct, but it needs to be, still needs to be better.
Is it something to do with roles?
No. So sharing rules is primarily used for defining exceptions to the OWD. And this comes into picture only if the data is private. If I made the data private, which means you get to see your record, I get to see my records, right? But in case there is a small exception, and OWD is applicable on the entire organization. Full organization comes under OWD, right? So if you make data private, everyone will get to see their own records. Now if there is a small requirement that for a few days Mohit is going on leave and I will need to look after his accounts, I cannot see his accounts. Then how do we deal with that? Then you define a sharing rule. So sharing rule most of the times is a temporary setting, giving access to someone who by OWD does not have access, but using sharing rule you can define a rule that okay fine, allow this guy to see his records. Make sense, right? Because OWD, as the name suggests, organization wide default, if it is applicable on the entire organization, there will be certain exceptions which will be required, right? You cannot completely make the data private. Sometimes there will be requirements where you need someone to share someone's data. At that time again you cannot go and remove the OWD. If you remove OWD, then everyone will get to see everyone's data, which is also not good. So sharing rule is basically a temporary adjustment to handle the exceptions of the OWD. Clear?
Okay. Yeah.
Alright. So are we clear on what we have discussed so far? We've talked about we talked a little on the data loader part, we talked a little on the additions, licenses, profiles, permission sets, OWD, sharing rules, right? So I think we covered quite a few topics today. Tomorrow when we meet, we will again, so first thing, are we meeting tomorrow? I think we are.
Wait, I do not know that.